Hi friends, I was just sitting here today putting some of my tomato plants in containers, so I thought I might bring you along for the fun. Tomatoes grow really well in containers, but keep in mind that the ones that grow in a container, as opposed to say in the ground in a garden bed or whatnot, they don't grow to be quite as big. So what we do for our urban homestead is we save the garden space for ones that really need to grow big and produce a really heavy crop, because we actually rely a lot on the stuff that we grow here. We try to grow as much as we can, not only to supplement our grocery bill, but also, especially like with the tomatoes and other things, we try to put them away for the winter and whatnot. So we need our tomatoes to be able to produce stuff like spaghetti sauce, salsa, diced tomatoes and jarred diced tomatoes, or tomato sauce, things like that. So we really need as many as we can. So what I tend to do is put things that are reliable and heavy croppers, stuff like Romas, which are really good, maybe like beefsteaks or Rutgers or in the summer, stuff like that. Other varieties that tend to really produce a lot of tomatoes, I save the garden space for those. But I also really like heirlooms. Nothing compares with the flavor of an heirloom, but they're just not practical for canning and whatnot. So what I try to do is I put my heirlooms in containers and then my heavier cropping tomatoes in the garden. But whatever the reason is, if you don't have enough space in your garden, you want to grow more varieties of tomatoes than you can fit there or whatnot, you can grow them in a container. So what I did is I got some of these containers. They were on clearance at Lowe's. I think they were like 50 cents or something like that, but it's just a cheap container. And then even when you grow a tomato in a container, they do need support. Like most tomatoes, they need some kind of staking, because tomatoes are actually a subtropical vine, and they'll grow all over the ground if you let them, but that doesn't work as well for them. So I always stake my tomatoes with some kind of a trellising system of some sort. So what I do is I just take my tomato cage and I stick it in the pot through the holes, and then I kind of try to keep it centered as best as I can and make it low enough that it works, and then I bend out the bottom legs of the tomato cage. This not only makes it so that the cage is attached to the pot, but it also makes it so that it's more stable. Like if this was sitting on the ground and the wind wanted to blow, these legs are going to keep it from toppling over. And it also makes it easier to move the tomatoes around, so you just pick it up by the cage. So they might need adjusting a little bit, but once you get it in there and everything's looking good, you can just put a little soil in the bottom of the container, just so the roots aren't right on the bottom. Heirloom tomato here that I grew from seed several months ago with you guys. Doesn't it look good? It's really big and it's starting to get flowers. I'm so excited. If you squeeze the pot a little bit, it makes it easier for the plants to come out of their pots. So, lower it down into the cage. Fits really good. And then you bury it the rest of the way with the soil. There have been some studies done that show that tomato plants do like to be buried deep, as most people who have gardened know, but a lot of people advocate burying them as deep as you can. I really don't see any advantage to that, because if you actually pull it out at the end of the season, you'll see that the roots are all concentrated in the top 2, maybe 3 inches of the plant. So if you were to take, say, this plant here, and you were to cut off its leaves and then bury it up to here, the roots would all be right here at the top, and then there would be kind of a spew along the stem, and then there'd be a second big, massive root ball at the bottom where the roots originally were. So there's really no advantage to burying it this deep as there would be to burying it this deep, because it's only going to get the massive amount of roots right around the top. Because when you water your plants, that tends to be where the watering takes place, is right around at the top. Unless you live in a really rainy climate and the water is really able to go back down. I live in northern Colorado. It's basically a high desert. We don't hardly get any rain here. We do in the spring. But then after that, it can go 2-3 months without raining. So I water my plants daily, and the water never goes down very deep. So for me and where I live, it seems more practical, at least when you're planting them in a container, to just not bury them too terribly deep. So you don't really need too big of a container. Once you get all your soil around and in there, you're pretty much done. You can just stick it on your patio or wherever and keep it watered, and your nice little tomato plant will produce for you. And in my case, a beautiful heirloom tomato that I can't wait to find out what it is. I planted these seeds. They were called an heirloom mix, and it's got, like, I don't know, 6 or whatever different types of tomatoes, and so I'm kind of excited to see what each one is, and it'll be a surprise. So anyway, I hope you found this information useful, and feel free to ask if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.